It is now 10:11 a.m. Today is May 8th, and we are here at the Senate chamber of the Honorable Jesus P. Mofnes Memorial Building. With that, I call this Committee on Health, Welfare, and Programs meeting to order. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize the LA to take roll.
Senator Selena R.
Presente.
Babauta, Senator Manny Gregory T. Castro,
Estiga.
Senator Francisco Q. Cruz, Senator Donald M. Manglonia,
Present.
Senator Carl R. King Neighbors.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, 4 members are present, 1 member is absent.
Thank you. Devin, with 4 members present, we have the quorum to proceed with today's committee meeting. Before we move on to the adoption of the agenda, I'd like to recognize the staff of the legislature assisting the committee. We have our Sergeant at Arms, Benjamin Derlahi, our Youth Congress coordinator, Mr. Louis John Castro, our IT manager, Jonathan Diaz, our legislative assistant, Debbie Macaranas, legal counsel, Joe Bermudez. Thank you for your assistance today. With that, can I get a motion for the adoption of today's agenda? I need the motion first. Motion to adopt?
So moved.
All right, there was a motion made and was adopted. Any objections to the motion?
None.
With none, motion carries. We now move on to public comments. Floor is open. If there's no one from the public who wishes to make comments today, we will close the comment portion of the agenda and move down to new business. We have 3 items on their new business. We have Senate Bill 2431 entitled "To Ensure Food Safety and Support Small Food Entrepreneurs Sell Low-Risk, Non-Perishable Foods and Home-Cooked Meals and for Other Purposes." We also have Senate Bill 2403 to transfer the management and supervision of the Soil and Water Conservation District to the Northern Marianas College Crease and for other purposes. And lastly, we have Senate Bill 2404 to advance Indigenous, Chamorro, and Carolinian language education in the CNMI. Members, if there's no objections, we will just move down to new business item B, and then we'll return to A at the end of the meeting. In regards to Senate Bill 2403, the transfer of the management and supervision of the Soil and Water Conservation Districts to NMC Crease, we've submitted comments to NMC Crease, Department of Land and Natural Resources, on all 3 islands. We've only received comments from the Secretary of DNR, Secretary Sylvan Igasomar, and he basically requested to leave or that they support the status quo in which they will still oversee the Soil and Water Conservation District. Any comments from the members? Recognize Senator Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in support with the intention of this bill. And although we did not receive any comments from the Northern Marianas College Crease as of this meeting, I think we can go ahead and move forward to vote on it unless there are any objections. I have no concerns right now on this bill. And if the NMC Crease director has any concerns, they can certainly take it up once it's transmitted to the House, although it is not the most efficient way of passing legislation, as if the House makes any amendments, it will then have to come back again to the Senate. But in order to facilitate the advancement of this bill, I'd like to go ahead and move to vote on this bill today.
Thank you, Senator Babauta. Any other comments? If there's not, recognize Senator Castro.
I am in no way against the bill. I just my only caution is that NMC CREASE is a federal program, and I just worry that if we deviate away from DLNR, there might be some consequences to that. But I believe, yeah, that's my only concerns. I feel like if there's issues within DLNR, we need to look into DLNR and why there's issues concerning the reason for this bill. But Chair, Yo, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Anything else from any of the members? If there's none, while I appreciate your sentiment, Senator Balta, maybe in light of what Senator Castro had brought up, I think we can just, before acting on this bill, maybe we can check with NMC CREASE to ensure that this does not affect any of their programs by creating additional responsibilities for the department. Recognize Senator Balta.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. But as a body, the legislature has done legislation and acts like this before, where it transfers into a federal program, a local program. So I will disagree with your comments for, as it is presented. And also, I think the DLNR has a lot on its plate right now. And there needs to, and I certainly haven't heard any recent enforcement of soil and water conservations being actively or proactively or aggressively being enforced by the DLNR. And this, in a way, can be seen as to assist that department by focusing on other regulatory matters, whereas CREASE has in recent years been aggressively pursuing grants to advance and promote soil, and not only that, agriculture. They've received millions of grants in recent years. And this, I think, is aligned with what their mission is. So I think it's a matter of efficiency. This will also help DLNR by taking this off their plate if they can't focus on enforcing what they were mandated to by statute. We can certainly give it to another agency that already is carrying that mission forward, regardless of this bill to become law, and also to enhance their programs further in agriculture. And that is what they've been focusing on in recent years at NMC CREASE. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you for your comments, Senator Balta. Any other comments from the members? Recognize Senator Castro.
Chair,
Sorry, Senator Castro. Recognize Senator King Neighbors.
my apologies, Chair. I just wanted to, I do agree with Senator Bobalta, his remarks regarding NMC CREASE's purview and their expertise regarding this. But I feel as if I would be more comfortable moving forward with this legislation if we spoke to the stakeholders, NMC CREASE, and even though we have given them an opportunity to provide comments, I do not want to vote this down and have this stay in committee. But so I ask that, in line with your suggestion, that we hold off on action on this until we get comments from the pertinent parties.
Thank you, Senator King Neighbors. Recognize Senator Castro.
So 100%, I agree with the prior two statements. Again, my only concern is that NMC CREASE was created through a land grant program, and its main mission is supposed to be more similar to some of the other issues with the departments that we've worked with, where NMC CREASE, why that program was created, why land grant programs exist, is there's supposed to be more of the educational and guidance aspect. They're not supposed to be a regulatory or department. So, in essence, for example, when there's like farmers having issues with their bananas dying, NMC CREASE should be, really researching and doing the on the ground studies of why that's happening and supporting the farmers. Um, Whereas DLNR's responsibility is to do more of the regulatory process. So I agree with Senator Babauta. This could be an opportunity also to save. Given the current economic climate, this could be an opportunity to save general fund resources. However, at the same time, we just have to be careful, because a lot of the times we keep moving programs, and then it goes beyond the scope of its constitutional mandate or grant mandate, and then we get into problems. So I also agree with what was mentioned by Senator King Neighbors about maybe bringing in the two stakeholders and to make sure that we package this correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Castro. In regards to the legislation, though, are there any amendments that the members would like to make prior to taking any action on it? It's pretty straightforward in the sense where it's just we're replacing DLNR to NMC. But if there's no other amendments that is needed at this time, what we can do is we'll table this legislation, and if we get a response from NMC CREASE, I can make the request to the Senate President to withdraw this and put it straight. We can act on it at the next session or whenever we receive the comments from NMC CREASE. Any new amendments that the members would like to make at this time? All right. If there's none, thank you, members, for your comments and suggestions. We'll, like I've mentioned, we will table this, and as soon as we get a response from NMC, I will inform the committee of their response, and we can place it on calendar at hopefully our next session. All right, and with that, members, thank you. We move down to the next item on the agenda, Senate Bill 2404 to advance Indigenous Chamorro and Carolinian language education in the CNMI. Comments from the members? Recognize the author.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to state that this bill, we worked on this in the House. It didn't make it past the Senate as well. We just ran out of time, but the basic concept of this bill is to advance Chamorro and Carolinian language education in the CNMI. Right now, we have a lot of our Indigenous people that can speak the language. However, they need the resources and programs to help them in terms of teaching. At the same time, we have a lot of teachers that are underpaid. Right, there's a discrepancy in paid, and whether you call them an instructor or a teacher, they're still doing the same same job, and it's disheartening to walk into schools and see that our bilingual teachers are not, you know, supported in the same manner as our, let's say, our language arts teachers or other teachers. And given that our constitution mandates support for this program, it's I think it's also high time that we support this bill. I know there were some comments that were submitted prior about um, to mandate it. However, this bill is more for it's more focused on the providing the tools for instructors to grow and for PSS to build capacity. And then at the same time, I feel like we can also include that amendment to mandate the language from 8th grade and up. However, I feel like that's a separate bill that can be introduced rather than um, including it in this bill. So this bill focuses more on um, the credentials of the program and the pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Any other members? Recognize Senator Babauta.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I support the intention of this bill. I would respectfully request that this be tabled. While I appreciate the comments from the Chamorro and Carolinian Language Policy Commission and the Indigenous Affairs, the two most critical stakeholders that are affected by this bill is the public school system and the Northern Marianas College by requiring NMC to certify these teachers as qualified teachers to teach the indigenous language of Chamorro and Carolinian. I do appreciate this bill that it promotes and fosters awareness of our indigenous identities, and it combats the declining use of our language. And it also recognizes the language that are official here in the CNMI. But my concern is that, and let me practice what I preach, and I'll speak in Chamorro this time. I-NMC ma-require ni sinabiyo na poro certify poro fan mamanogi gi public school system. Lo todza mensahe ginisihan na sinya tsogwisti para siya po fan man certify nisita tananga i-comments kinin NMC sa otro lokwiti tatungo ko guaha proficient no language speakers giza NMC. Siguro zo nagwaha ginigi tanota lo ko sinya i NMC ne ha enforces ti i paraw fan certified no proficient language speakers both in Carolinians and no Chamorro. Lo huagradesi naman marekognisa zaman adbabansa ilingwahin i tanota siha. I otro PSS manda ginin estinabio na todo estisa na maestros and maestra ni man no recognisa como man qualificado po fan mamanogin ni lingwahe. Mamanda na debi di tutuhon isweddo gi afa na step no gaya gini i step ni estibio a provinizia no afa na pay level dan step ni po matutuhon. I otro no Joko concern na tinabio na para edji tagi tenga tinian i municipalidad tinian dan luta ni tadsa tiningo tadsa sinya mamanogi Carolinian gina isla siya sa tadsa no ciudadano na edji siya na municipalidad no mapraktika edjo na lingwahe. Ja estinabio hamanda sa i-public school system a extendigi guato tinian zan luta zahamanda na todo do i eskwela siya gi za tinian zan luta lo kay debido mafanogi i lingwahe ni Chamorro mucho mas i lingwahe i refaluas ni tadza pumatitika gano siya na isla za este na bio tiha address no i otro lekta i NMC mamanda na pro nagwaha 16-week academic program designed for Carolinian and Chamorro language no teachers profan mamanogi. So nigi ko concern time manwa na rason tanasid bini paugutate table 24-03 siguro zo nata necesita i communication gini ni PSS dan i NMC antes di tapasa este na akto. Ano no Chairman Jesus Mase.
Thank you, Senator Balta. I think in regards to your concerns about the Carolinian portion, I think that's why 101A clearly distinguishes between whether it should be a Chamorro or Carolinian language class, with the understanding that it may be much more difficult to get a Carolinian teacher on Rhoda or Tinian. So it's as long as they take a full year of Chamorro or Carolinian, should a Carolinian class be available. What I do know also is that UOG already offers a Chamorro degree program where an individual can get their bachelor's out of UOG. We do have some teachers here in the CNMI who had graduated with a degree in Chamorro language or Chamorro studies, somewhere along those lines. And so that's something that's already established. Now, the only thing that we haven't seen is, I think, a degree program or a certificate program for the Carolinian language. But also in mandating that NMC develops this 16-week program, it's just a matter of ensuring that they're equipped with the resources they would need to carry out this program, and whether it be through additional funding or assistance from PSS, similarly to how we, in the current fiscal year, had included a provision where we set aside funds for NMC through PSS's budget to ensure that these services could be provided. And so I think it'll just be a policy call on the members to make the motion whether they would like to proceed with this bill or table it for further considerations. At this time, I recognize Senator Clustering.
So I just wanted to clarify that the difference between this bill and the previous bill that we were talking about is one, we are not transferring responsibilities because by constitutional mandate, NMC is supposed to be providing this services. At the same time, by constitutional mandate, PSS is supposed to be providing this types of programs. Although NMC is not here, I did speak with their School of Education director about how we could get this program in terms of funds, and there's already resources. It's just how you package the program. NMC already has all the courses that are required. Having been a former enrollment director at the college for several years, there's a lot of PSS employees that do go up to the college to take those courses that are needed for their minimum qualifications or other certifications. So again, this bill, the main intent of this bill is not to deviate from each agency's constitutional mandate, but it's to provide equity to the Chamorro and Carolinian bilingual teachers. It also does not mandate that, as the language says in it, Chamorro or Carolinian. So in the case of in Rhoda, if as Senator Bobalta alluded to, it if there's it's only upon need, right? But I don't want to deviate away from the intent of this bill. The intent of this bill is to pay the bilingual teachers the salary that they should be getting and to end the discrimination. And you can say it's not discrimination, but in my opinion, when a language arts, the salary scale between a language arts teacher and a Chamorro or Carolinian bilingual teacher is over 2 times. There's an issue with that because it never used to be like that. And we keep using different terms. Oh, they're not teachers, they're instructors or they're contractors, but they're still doing the same job. How many teachers are we going to lose to Guam, which has recruited a lot of our bilingual teachers because Guam recognizes the need and pays their bilingual teachers the salary that they should be compensated at. When I went to the Chamorro and Chamorro language competition, most of the instructors I saw that were teaching in Guam schools were from the CNMI. And that's because of, the legislature in Guam felt that this was important and provided the resources for the school system to fund bilingual education accordingly. Thank you, Chairman Ayo.
Thank you, Senator Castro. At this time, are there any proposed amendments that the members would like to make? I recognize Senator
Chair.
Babauta. Sorry, Senator Babauta. I recognize Senator King Neighbors. Senator King Neighbors, would you like to yield to Senator Babauta first?
I'll yield.
Oh,
Yes.
Recognize
thank you,
Senator Babauta.
Senator Neighbors. Nung gini intention estina bill lokwi ne sagay gini bill not only to end the disparity in the I dunia. The intention loki poro ma-advansa poro ma-promote I lingwahe. Idos na indigenous na lingwahe. And when I say indigenous, I mean indigenous to their own respective unique cultures and traditions. If the additional intent of that is to promote those two languages, or at least the two languages, other official languages we speak here, no preciso yung pinunno na manda lokine para hodzi na estudyante malago, because there is a great disparity. The Carolinians are underrepresented in the public school system in terms of their ways of life, their culture, their tradition, their languages. Pues malatatsa bansay dos ne. Kumilele ko I otro electa na preciso loki na ta recibi, estina comité o recibi I communication ginin NMC zani PSS sa siya I dos mas inafefecta nestina na akto ni proma que pasa gini gi Senate. And no, I dos zangin I believe in equity zangin patad bansa uno mala sa tad bansa I otro sa man ma underrepresent loki no I Carolinians gi Zamarianas. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Babauta. I recognize Senator King Neighbors.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that I do understand what Senator Walter is talking about regarding the advancement of both languages. However, I believe that the clause, as alluded to by the chair earlier, regarding the and or, as well as the fact that it gives the opportunity for the public school system to possibly bridge that gap where there is one between the available speakers of the Carolinian language to be available to Rhoda and Tinian. With that being said, I am ready to move forward with this legislation. I yield.
Thank you, Senator King Neighbors. And I think, there has to come a point where we would need to make the decision on determining whether or how we would like to proceed in regards to the preservation of our language and the practice of our language and culture. And right now, I don't think the Chamorro language is a requirement. I do know that there are immersion programs in the younger grades. And so I think, if anything, I would support a 2-year requirement on and for requiring students to take Chamorro or Carolinian languages. But in the way it stands, I think this 1-year requirement is a step forward, and seeing what the challenges are or what the benefits may come from this, we can come back in the future and see if we should require additional years that we can add on to this requirement. And so for now, I think this is a way in which we can require these institutions to start looking at how we can promote our language as well as preserve our language, and that any amendments that could be made in regards to understanding what are some of the challenges that may come from this, in regards to whether we are still having difficulties with hiring Carolinian and Chamorro teachers. We can also consider incentives, further additional incentives, so that we can get the teachers we need. Like I said, with the immersion programs, there has been challenges in just trying to hire teachers for those programs, and those are programs where these languages are spoken throughout the instruction. And so the comments that we received from the Language Commission, Chamorro Carolinian Language Policy Commission, is in full support of this legislation, as well as the comments received from the Resident Executive of Indigenous Affairs Office, Ms. Luella Marciano, also in full support. I don't see any additional recommendations that they would like for us to consider. And so with that, I would like to recognize any members for any motion.
Motion for the adoption of the committee report for its approval.
Motion to adopt the Senate Bill 2403, if I understood that correctly, Senator Costa.
Correct.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there was a motion made and was seconded. At this time, I recognize the LA to take roll.
Senator Selena Arbabauta,
Mr. Chairman, I think because we used the reason to table 2403 that we should wait for the comments of NMC Crease. I argue finally that we should wait for the comments of PSS and NMC, the two agencies most affected by this bill. Therefore, my vote is no.
Senator Manny Gregory T. Castro,
Mr. Chairman, because my vote is yes. Yeah, thank you.
Senator Carl R. King Nivers,
Yes.
Senator Donald M. Manglonia.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 3 members voted yes, 1 member voted no, and 1 member is absent.
Thank you, Devin. With 3 members voting yes, motion passes. May I ask that you please prepare the committee report for Senate Bill 2403. Thank you, members. At this time, we move on to the last bill on the agenda, Senate Bill 24-31, to ensure food safety and support small food entrepreneurs sell low-risk, non-perishable food and home-cooked meals, and for other purposes. Members, we received comments from the Commonwealth Healthcare Corporation, as well as Mr. Roman Tadella from SBDC, Mr. Tudela supports this bill without any recommendations. We do have a couple of recommendations from CHCC, and from my understanding, we have representatives from CHCC. If you can please join us up there in the chamber, and if any members would like to ask them anything, any clarification on the comments, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you, Chairman and esteemed members. I'm John Tagbo from CHC Environmental Health Services. On my right is our operation manager and office, Miss Eileen Panglinan. And then we wrote you a respond letter, the committee, and we're here to answer if there's any question, pending questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tagable. Any comments from the members on the bill? This is quite a lengthy response, and we appreciate the input from CHCC. And so we'll just go down the line, and then if members have questions in regards to the particular recommendations, we'll address that to Mr. Tagable and Ms. Pangilinan. But this time, I recognize Senator Castro.
I just wanted to say that given the current economic climate of our faced by the currently, I believe this bill helps reduce the gap and encourages entrepreneurship among our people. And it also provides the mechanism by giving public health and it's the regulatory body, the oversight to make sure that all compliance is met. So given those two statements that I mentioned, I am in support of this bill for the reason that we need to teach our people and support our people to be more of the sellers. For so long, we've been accustomed to being the buyers, and any bill that helps our people become entrepreneurs and self-sufficient and not reliant on the government or food stamp programs. Not to say that that's bad, but over the years, we've seen how our people are forgetting how to be entrepreneurs, and we need to get back to that. So I believe this bill helps create that middle ground, and I applaud the author, and at the same time, I also not compromising the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Any other members? Recognize Senator Babalta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support this bill. For those of you may know my late mother, si Maria Borja Roberto, aka TB. I think she started the first concept of a food truck here in Saipan, selling empanadas and hot lunch and tarakilis, ilotes, you name it, it was in there. And I remember helping her in our kitchen in Chalancanoa, making the homemade cheeseburgers and all that she sold. So I support this bill because I come from that background. However, I would like to ask Mr. Tagabo, did you read the recommendations made by the CHCC CEO?
Yes, and we, in fact, drafted.
Okay.
We are in support of this initiative, 100%. It's just that there is some wording, perhaps, and food safety issues that are front and center, and we don't want to compromise that. So,
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Thank you. That was my next line of question, whether you agree with this If you had not been the one to draft these recommendations, do you agree with it? And secondly, the second portion of my question would be, do you have any further recommendations to this comment from the CEO herself? Is there anything you'd like to add or take out maybe?
Uh, our recommendation is set. It's there for you guys to consider.
Okay.
But one thing that is not mentioned is a small business. They need some help. It could be buying a small cutting board or refrigeration or stuff like that. Micro loan, small $5,000 will really help these guys. If we really mean it, that's our challenge when we go in and we try to, as much as possible, help them out. But you could only, refrigeration is refrigeration. It's not cold, it's out of temperature, things like that. Those are the simple stuff that perhaps this esteemed body could help them out, that provide that access for them to for them to get loan when we write them recommendations and stuff for them to be compliant.
Thank you for that. I have no further questions for you, but I do support the bill and support entrepreneurship mostly for our people and the small businesses who are hurting out there, or households that may need to provide, further income for their families. Like I said, I come from that background, and it is in fact what put me through private school and further college, because my parents only had this source of revenue by selling out of the truck from our family's, pickup truck with a temporary housing made for it. So I appreciate the chairman for introducing this bill, and I have no further comments, Mr. Chairman. I yield at this time.
Thank you, Senator Barata. I do want to point out something that was written in the comments by CACC. And it's just a portion of this paragraph. This is critical to preserving community health and preventing foodborne illness outbreaks. The CHCC EHDP program has identified 32 known operators that fit into either the cottage food or micro enterprise home kitchen operations. And of these, 23 are regulated under the current sanitary permit guidelines. 9 operators are actively marketing on social media without permits. And so, this is where we would like to see for those 9 operators to, register as a business, but also remove the barriers that make it difficult for them to venture into into the entrepreneurial spirit. And we hope that, and I think this 9 seems pretty low. There might be more out there, but at least the ones that you guys were able to capture, we hope that we can get more individuals coming into compliance. And by doing that, this is one way we can help it remove the barriers that would otherwise discourage them from starting up their business. And so with that, we appreciate, again, CC's input. We will go through each one section by section, just so that if there's any questions from the members, we can get further clarification. We'll start off with section 101 with the definitions. The recommendation is to include the defined terms for non-perishable and low-risk foods, so that it is clear and it is enforceable. Is this something is there a definition already that EHDP has?
Go ahead.
So with our recently adopted food code, there is a definition for time temperature control for food safety food products. And those food items are regulated and there's a standard for them. But if we're talking about low risk foods, it would be non-TCS foods. And there are certain parameters which include water activity and pH levels. So if they meet those certain parameters, then they would fall under non-TCS or low-risk foods. So I think we can define it and
Okay.
set a standard for it, because what you may consider as low risk food may not be what I consider low risk food.
Right.
So we need to.
But
make
is there a
that
set definition that
EHDP.
HDP uses, and that is something that we can incorporate in this legislation? Do you happen to have that with you, or is that something that you can share?
It's defined in our food code.
Okay. And that's available online
Yes.
Yes.
through your website. Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Through our statute and under FDA food code.
Okay. Thank you. We'll look through that, and then we'll include that. If there's no objections from the members. Recognize.
I'm concerned that you're mentioning pH levels in water when used to prepare or, food for these entrepreneurs, that we are removing barriers for to be able to bring revenue to their households. But something, when you mentioned pH levels in water, my water in Aslito is filled with PFAS. So how does that comply with your regulations and your code? It's a danger to begin with. So I think we should probably work around that, but that's for you guys to decide. All we do is introduce the legislation. We take your recommendations and try to implement it. But I just wanted to let you guys know that, those who receive water from the Isley water tank behind the airport. And at one point, it supplied water all the way to the hospital, actually. That's how far that water well was providing water for. And it has been filled with PFAS since the end of World War II, or at least a decade after that, when all the foam was buried underneath. And now we are suffering the effects of that. These are forever chemicals that pose a high risk and danger to our health. So I just wanted to toss that concern in, but I do appreciate your candidness in answering the questions that the chairman has posed. I just wanted to relay that concern, Mr. Chairman. I yield at this time.
Thank you, Senator Babalta. Anything else from the members? Recognize Senator Castro.
Part of the recommendation on their enforcement and penalties, page 4, lines 18 18 through 19. Any person who violates a provision of this act or operates without registration or a permit shall be fined 1,000 per violation. Is that the current amount that any is that what's currently being assessed for those with the other permits? Okay.
In our regulation, we have to give them warning first. And it escalated, depends on the compliance. So if, for example, repeated violation that it's not imminent danger, we either start from $100 or $50, depending on how the inspectors do it. But the maximum is $5,000 in our 11-40 when repeated violators. But $1,000, it's high for us. But there's a beauty in that. First and foremost, warning have to be given, a written warning, unless it's imminent danger. Sewer, food handlers are not certified and stuff like that. We see sick people inside that the management are not taking care of or removing them from sites. Those are the imminent danger that we look at.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tagabuao. And I like the way you explained it. If that's the regulation, it's a very fair regulation. guidance, and warning for especially for the smaller operators that at least you. Um, so that was my only concern. But if, excuse me, given the way that it was explained, I believe it's fair.
May I just add, just for your reference? So it's under, we have two laws. So under Public Law 12-48, that is where we have our enforcement fees at the initial violation as a warning. The second offense is a fine up to 500, and then the third offense, a fine up to $1,000 per violation.
Okay. So not the 5,000, or is that a more
Up to
severe?
5,000 is our other law, which is Public Law 11-40.
For an additional offenses, or is that for a much more
Again, it
severe?
follows the initial warning, and then second offense, I can't be
Okay.
too sure. It might be up to $1,000 and then up to $5,000. But we operate off of those two laws.
Okay. Thank you. You have the floor, sir.
So just want to clarify that was 12-48 and 11-40. Okay, and then
Sorry, is 1140 the public law, or is that the code, administrative code?
That is our Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act.
It's a public law. Okay.
Both of them are public law.
since we're on this a similar topic, I just wanted to ask as a side note, I noticed that because I was able to get my food handler's license here in the CNMI and also on prior employment in the state of Oregon. And what I noticed now, for example, in the state of Oregon, once you get your food handler's license, you're good. It doesn't matter which uh, department or company you work for, at least at that time. Um, so my question is, the safety is the same, the standards are the same. Why are we having, let's say, someone that like worked at Herman's apply for food handlers, and then maybe 6 months later, their food handler's license is still good for a certain amount of time, and it's still valid. But then when they apply at Joten, they have to apply for another food handler's license under Joten. And it's not just your agency, but I've seen this across some departments where the training and the credential is the same, and the standards are the same, but it's like per uh, business. I know it might be for revenue purposes, but at the same time, it's I don't know if that's like a best practice on the for businesses to. But I would leave. I just wanted to inquire about that.
So when we started at food handlers, the rationale behind it is to track, to make sure, because we have a lot of transitional workers that they just pop up anywhere. But more importantly, TB was high and communicable disease was high. So if we don't track them, but built in with that regulation is we allow for them to work in this, like Joten, for example. Joten have a lot of outlets. We allow that. Or Hyatt, for example, they could work in different, but it's when they go outside that company, we offer $15 a year. $15 for duplicate.
So then it wouldn't be the same costs. Like let's say if they switch from Herman's, their certificate is valid, they would pay a lower rate when they transition to another company. Okay, that sounds fair, and I really like the process behind it. It's about data and tracking, and basically the new permit tracks maybe like where like I can see where the thought process is. Like if there was a issue here, you're tracking that same employee. So thank you. It's a really smart way to do things. However, there's also one other question I just wanted to ask, is it really necessary for companies that don't deal with the kitchen, like let's say delivery truck drivers, like that are delivering soda or beer, do they need to get food handlers, and if so, what's the rationale?
So if we're looking at our regulations, any food, drink, water is defined as food. And so with that, they're required to get a food handler certification. But I see like where, it might not be a higher risk to get a food handler to deliver like beer or soda. But we also need to remember like some of them don't just deliver sodas, they deliver other food. So we just want to make sure that they understand they deliver sodas, but really they could also be transferring or transporting high risk products that require temperature control or
And I really want to thank you. I know this is not 100% aligned with this, but it's related. But I just really want to thank you for your time and answering a lot of the questions. We're all, usually doing our thing, and um, it's good information. Now the public can also hear directly from the source. The other, sorry, also good um, concept there. I just wanted to say that as a consumer, there are several times where I purchase, let's say, like a drink. It was, I don't want to say which brand, but I purchased this can beverage, and it just smelled really funky, and there was like residue on the top. So usually I just wipe it, but in that case, how you mentioned, I can see where we also may need to look into those like warehouses, because it just smelled like rat, like, and that's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Custer. While we're still in 101, indirect sales, your concern is that it is in conflict with the existing food safety requirement that all food sold in regulated establishments must come from an approved source. Can you elaborate on? I mean, when we're thinking about like consignment, right? How it? I mean, that's the intention. So how is this in conflict?
I think what we were a little confused was going back to the definitions or how you had it placed as registered versus permitted. So I think if we can clarify, if they're just going to register with us, like just submit their name and they're not required.
No, I think. Sorry, I think the intention was permitted, if that's the case.
Okay.
And I think that was one of the proposals I was going to make to replace that registration or register with the what you had proposed. Apply for and obtain a sanitary permit. So anyone with a sanitary permit would be
Would meet the definition of approved source. So
an indirect sales, and we can leave that definition of indirect sales as it is through a third party business. Okay. Any objections, member, to with amending the replacing register and registration as is seen in 102B1? No objection. If there's none, Devin, can we just CFOs must apply for and obtain a sanitary permit from EHDP and renew permit annually. Do you have a copy of the bill also in front of you? Or would you like one? Just so you can follow along. Do you have a copy of the bill? Okay. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. As far as the permitted foods, are there any concerns? I don't see any listed, but so I don't see any concerns you have with 102A. However, under the portion where if you look at 102B3, CFOs must properly label all products with the business name and the list of ingredients. However, your recommendation is that they include the weight, the net weight, the volume, and all of those. Is that current practice with consignments even?
We just want to keep it consistent with our other laws. So under 11-40 and our current regulations, those are the requirements for labeling. So I think it'll just be easier if it's consistent across the board.
But is it a requirement right now for consignments, like the sandwiches? Because I don't see those with the sandwiches that you would find at the store. Is that
So that
is there an exception?
no, we're working on that. So I'm not sure if you're starting to see labels meeting the requirements with the food code that was also adopted just last November. So it is a
It will
requirement,
become,
yeah.
or it's in the process of
Yes.
being implemented.
Chairman, if I may add, so the ingredients have to be listed.
Correct.
But if we could just go by the predominance, we could work with the vendor to just list it in alphabetical order of predominance, what's like tuna sandwich. So it's tuna, mayonnaise,
Right.
and spices, whatever spices there is.
But so will they still be exempted from listing the net weight and the volume? Is that something that we can allow for? If it's something like small items like sandwiches, stuff like that.
That's very doable.
Okay, thank you. So for 3, right now the current requirement is business name and address, list of ingredients, allergen warnings if applicable, and a statement that the product was made in a home kitchen. We can also include another item to add the date of production. Is it a requirement to include a best before date or expiration date, or is that currently a requirement? Or
We're entering new, this cottage cheese and, I'm sorry, cottage food and micro enterprise are very new in the market. So, but the current practice right now, we see you have 7 days, label everything and put it away. And then, or 3 days. Is it 3 days or how many hours?
It's 7 days.
7 days in the refrigeration. Unused stuff, you put it back. So the label is very important.
is it a requirement that foods prepared like in the mornings, for example, must be discounted after a certain time, or after sitting out for a certain time? Or I was just wondering. That was just a random thought
Okay.
because it does happen. I don't want to say where, but it does happen. I've seen it happen where it's discounted after a certain time.
Oh, actually, no, there is no requirement for it to be discounted.
Okay.
We don't have anything on our regs.
Okay. Well, I mean, like similarly to expired products where you can sell, or some stores sell them at a discounted price. And so I was wondering if the same applies to these home goods.
Now we're talking about hazardous food that potentially so we expect that the requirement is for 2 hours. If it's in 4 hours, 4 hours kept in the refrigeration to dispense in the shelf and stuff. After that, whatever the business decided, but they have to date it. First, they have to date with the production.
Okay.
And few establishments on Saipan already put the time,
Okay.
and then certain time they discount it.
Thank you. Another concern that you brought up under 102 is the Class B and how it violates the approved source requirement under FDA food code. Can you elaborate on that one, please?
I think that just goes back to where you had the word permitted versus
Okay, so even just that
registered.
amendment of the language would address that
So
concern.
as long as
Okay.
they're permitted, then
Okay.
and meet our requirements,
Okay.
then they should. Then I don't think this section would apply.
Okay. Thank you. In regards to moving on to section 103, you had a concern regarding permitted activities. Clarify whether MECOs are permitted to sell at events such as the farmers market and other community events that include food vendors. Wouldn't this be the same as indirect sales, where they're selling through these vendors?
Yes, that's what we wanted to clarify, because under cottage foods, section 102,
Uh-huh.
you did separate them by class A, class B. But under 103, the MACOs, it didn't mention anything if it just had to be direct to the consumer or if they're allowed to sell outside of their home. So we just wanted to clarify that.
So would you object to including language to amend 103A? MECOs may prepare and sell freshly cooked meals from a home kitchen or through a third-party vendor, as similarly to what is provided for in cottage food. So if we just add that language into section A, 103A, would that suffice? Thank you.
So just a background, Chair. Right now, we allow them to, what is that, temporary moves, weekend activities. We allow them to prepare food in their residence.
And
We
then-
do check that. But at the point of dispensing, like the booth and the fist, they have to get permit on that. But we don't, if they already have a permit at their place for cottage, then most of the fees are not required, except at the dispensing side.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations then on how we can allow for what is being sold out of their home and into these activities or these venues?
Sorry, for the micro enterprise home kitchen, I just wanted to make a comment, even though it's not technically under our authority, but because they're going to be preparing homemade meals, which are going to be hazardous foods, and I'm assuming meat products, if they're going to sell to retail, that falls under the jurisdiction of USDA, and there is a limitation of no more than, I believe, 3% meat. So that might be an issue with them selling out to retail, especially if it's not coming from a USDA approved facility.
3% meat within that packaged meal?
Yes. So, like I said, we don't directly enforce that, but we have had USDA investigators come out annually to do inspections at our retail stores and warehouses, and they will cite businesses that are selling products that exceed that amount, especially if it's not coming from one of their approved facilities. I just wanted to mention that.
Okay. Thank you. But some of these can be addressed when your department will establish the regs and procedures. So that's something that could be considered as well. It's just that we're just trying to make it easier for the small business homeowners or small business owners to be allowed to produce these goods. But at least the basic requirement is included in the legislation, and then other more stricter guidelines could be addressed in the regulation process that will be done by your division within the 6 months after this becomes signed into law. But as long as a lot of the language that will be in the statute is addressed, everything else that comes after could be something that could be established by EHDP. As far as your other concerns, you've indicated the bill should outline specific compliance expectations for CFOs and MECOs, including food safety training requirements, labeling standards, traceability of ingredients and end products, waste management protocols for home-based kitchens. And there's several under the list. But I think, again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, these are things that could be addressed through regulations. We just want to make it kind of broad so that we can give your division also the flexibility to establish these guidelines, but ensuring that similar requirements are in place to what the like the catering business undergo through, with the exception that they don't have to have an extra kitchen to prepare these foods. They can operate out of their home kitchen, provided that they meet the same sanitary guidelines that is required if they were to have a separate kitchen. Other than that, are there any other major concerns that you see that we can address now that maybe you may have issues with in the regulation, in the promulgation of the rules and regulations for this program?
Excuse me, sir. So we mentioned those 9, what is that, vendors that are,
Yeah.
we don't have authority to go in to the private premise without them coming to us or have evidence that they're selling food. So we need that mandate, that authority perhaps to be able to enter the private premise.
So that's not the case now, but the hope is by removing those restrictions, they can come forward and apply for a permit. And once they apply for the permit, then you would have the authority to go in there and inspect and ensure that they're following these guidelines. But as it currently stands, regardless of whether they have a permit or not, I mean, it's still a violation of their privacy. And so our hope, again, is that they come forward and they apply for these permits, and then you would have the authority to enter and inspect, which is included in the enforcement portion of the section of this act. EHDP may conduct periodic inspections to ensure compliance, and then this is where the violations come into play. One thing that we will take into consideration, and I think if the members agree, to amend 105A1, or sorry, B1, to make it consistent with the current violations in regards to the warning for the first offense, and then we'll mirror that to the public laws that were mentioned. Any other concerns? If there's none from EHDP, anything from the members? I recognize Senator Babalta.
Thank you. If I understand correctly, your bill, Mr. Chairman, this is to promote entrepreneurship with small businesses who have the skills and the talent and certainly the experience to, cook or bake from their homes while also intending to meet all the safety guidelines and sanitary guidelines and regulations. I was just thinking on a broader scale, how would you treat someone who has already met all the requirements, paid all their dues, let's say in the municipality of Rhoda? Some of them may want to come here for these small events like Arts Festival that we just had. It's a 3-day weekend. They just want to come out here and try and make a little bit more money than what they normally do. And if they can afford to fly here, they certainly would. I think, how would you treat that if this were to be enacted?
We don't have anything in the book as far as transferring of a permit, because that's basically if they dispense food at the point of dispensing, we issue permit if it's food. But we have our office down there. If there's a notice that they're coming up here, then we're gonna extend that because they already have a permit.
Yes.
It's when they don't have permit and folks come up from Tinian, for example, during harvest season that they dispense, and we're not aware of it, then we run into them and said, "Do you have a permit in Tinian?" That's where the issue starts. We said, "Okay, we need all these documents." We could work with our Tinian counterpart to.
So excuse me, the environmental health permit would be carried across the different islands. Is that correct? Would it be permitted if I had a permit in Rhoda to sell or sell baked goods? Would that permit in Rhoda that was issued in Rhoda restrict me in any way if I were to bring for the weekend to sell here?
So we do require that they obtain a temporary events permit to participate in any community event, whether it's the Flame Tree or Taste of the Marianas. It's a separate permit, an on-site events permit. So yes, you're a registered and permitted facility. Your facility is permitted, but to prepare and sell and dispense food at an off-site location, you would require a separate permit.
Is that does that come with additional fees?
Yes.
We're here to listen to your recommendation.
We're trying to make it easier, trying to remove barriers so that people can, yeah.
We're gonna work among our offices to make it easier for us, for our people, for our residents to.
Yeah, and that's certainly appreciative. And I think we need to adapt to the times,
Yes.
right? That we are limited in our geographics by water, unfortunately. It's not like just traveling from CK to Tanaupac. There's other expenses that the CFO or the MECOs, encounter when just trying to barely, make enough money, probably just to pay for their airfare back or whatever. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Babalta. I recognize Senator Castro.
Mr. Pangilinan Miss Pangilinan and Mr. Tagbo, I just wanted to thank you guys for the work that you do, and especially your statement, Mr. Tagbo, of you mentioned that if they already have a permit in Luta, they can, as long as they communicate with the department, you guys will work with them. And given given the economic situation, right, we like to hear these kind of statements because over the years you see the regulations and the laws keep amending. So even for a business license right now, I looked into the law, and few years ago, it was changed to be per location. So right now, like someone that's doing business on Rhoda, even though we're a Commonwealth or Tinian, based on that law that was amended a few years ago, they have to apply for a separate business license to do business here. And I feel like we need to look into those again. But I'm glad that you guys are doing what is necessary to stay safe, but at the same time help out our people. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. And I think that's sorry, recognize Senator
And I
Foster.
did want to say that the idea that you came about with the resources, I know CEDA does provide microloans. However, I do think our body needs to look into, you know, encouraging them to make it easier to access. Yeah, maybe a hybrid grant and loan type of program. But thank you.
Thank you, Senator Castro. And I think I appreciate you bringing up that there are opportunities for small business owners who are affected, who would be affected by this legislation, that there are options to venture out into the other islands, provided that there are temporary permits out there at a much cheaper rate structure, yes. So that they can also take advantage of other opportunities that may be available in the other islands where there may be an influx of consumers. Um, but I think for now, I guess what we can do is adopt the amendments and then provide your office with the final product that will be going to the Senate floor, so that if there are additional changes that we can consider, we can amend on the Senate floor. And then again, there is the section that allows your department to establish regulations and procedures, and so those are the extra steps that your division can take to ensuring that food safety is adhered to, and anything that isn't addressed in this legislation could be addressed through the regulations. And so when your department comes out with that regulations, and we can also keep track on that, and provide our comments during the comment period, and address any concerns that we may see from that. And so we thank you for your time. But before that, sorry, 1 minute recess. We now rise back into our committee meeting. So at this time, I would like to propose an amendment that we clarify the definition of non-perishable, low-risk foods to be consistent with what is in the 2022 food code. 2022 food code of non-TCS food. And that amendment will be reflected in section 101A. The next amendment I would like to propose is to section 102B1 to replace the terms register and registration with apply for and obtain a sanitary permit. The next amendment I'd like to make is on 102.3 by adding item 5, data production. The next one would be in section 103A. What do you call the temporary permit? It's a temporary permit to sell offsite. Offsite. Okay.
Temporary events permit.
So 103A would be Mecos may prepare and sell freshly cooked meals from a home kitchen or at temporary events, if that's what you would call those kind of activities. So a home kitchen or temporary events. Temporary events not lasting. How good are the temporary events permit? How long are they good for? Per event, for the duration of the event? Can it exceed 30 days?
No, temporary events are,
Like
That-
Taste of the Marianas is a month long, so it would just cover the
Yeah.
whole Taste of the Marianas.
correct.
But if it was a Taste of the Marianas 2 month long, it will still be accounted for those 2 months. If that were the case.
I would think it will fall into that category. We haven't reached that bridge yet. We haven't gotten that bridge yet.
Is Sabalu Market a temporary event?
Yes,
So they can just one permit for the whole year if it's every Saturday?
Sabalu Market, let me rephrase that. Sabalu Market is not permitted yet because we're trying to promote them.
Okay.
Okay, where years back, when there's a regular vendors, we permit those folks.
Okay.
But we're still evaluating. We still want to promote the Sabalu Market.
Okay. So still under the
Yeah.
regulations.
Whereas those folks in the Marianas, they're Marianas Business Center, they're pretty established. So a lot of them have permits.
So even the Thursday night market, is that similar to Sabalu Market? Because
Yes,
it's on and off.
Yeah.
Kinda, but now it's on. So but they don't need a temporary permit right now.
they do, I guess.
Okay. And so it'll last for the duration of when the Thursday night market is.
Yeah. So it's just not to exceed 30 consecutive days.
Okay. So we'll include that language as well.
So we work with the sponsoring agency. So they will let us know when they're rotating out because they rotate the vendors too.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying. So again, 103A would include cooked meals from a home kitchen or temporary events not exceeding 30 days. And then 105, section 105B1. I'd like to propose an amendment to replace that with to make it consistent with Public Law 1140 and Public Law 1248. So move. Can I get a second? Oh, sorry. So there was a motion that was made and was seconded. Any further discussion? Ready? At this time, I recognize Ellie to take roll.
Senator Selena R.
Yes.
Bautista, Senator Manny Gregory T. Castro,
I'm good.
Senator Carl R. King Neighbors,
Yes.
Senator Donald M. Manglona.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 4 members voted yes and 1 member is absent.
Thank you, Devin. With 4 members voting yes, the motion passes. Now back to the main motion. Any further discussion? Recognize Senator Babalta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. According to the recommendation of CHCC, Section 105, page 4, lines 18 to 19, their current regulations allow for a written warning before we implement,
Correct.
and that will,
The amendment is to be consistent with
Okay.
what's in Public Law
I'm
1140.
sorry, I
and
just didn't hear, I heard another section. I withdraw.
Thank you. Any other members? Um, sorry, one more question to Ms. Pangilinan or Mr. Tagable. One-time food handler must be certified in food safety. Your concern was that all persons handling food must obtain a food handler certification. Under the new food code, each permitted establishment should be supervised by a certified food handler safety manager during operations. So there's different tiers. You have a food handler, but then you also have a manager. Is that my understanding?
Yes, with the newly adopted food code, there is the requirement for a certified food protection manager. So I think the way it was stated is that the food employee would just have to get trained but not be certified. Or I'm sorry, no, one full-time food handler must be certified in food safety. But we're just recommending if they could align with our food code where they would have one certified food manager.
Okay. But without making any additional changes, would that be addressed in the new amendment where a CFO, oh sorry, that was under CFO, must be certified? Could this be addressed in the regulations aspect of the bill, where it will come from your division that they would, as part of the regulations?
Yes,
Okay.
and to add on to that, the FDA Food Code, we're still working to certify our staff and everyone along the line, in line. We haven't implemented that. We haven't got a date yet to fully enforce that.
Okay. So once that becomes
Yeah.
implemented, then it can be addressed in the regulations
Yes.
process. Okay.
More importantly, a person in charge, that's just a typical household, a wife, a daughter, whoever operates that, that's a person in charge. That's a manager, basically.
So even if there's only one individual business owner who's also the person that prepares the food, they would need to be the manager, and then that just covers all the.
We'll work
Requirements.
with the regulation to address that.
Okay, thank you. Clarified. Any other comments from the members? Recognize Senator Castro.
Um, if the business is a smaller business, can the food handler be both? Food handler and have both credentials? Like, let's say I'm a food handler. Can I just get the training to be the manager also? And so that, for the smaller businesses.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
definitely. It's just the title that we assign, person in charge. So you walk into an establishment now, retail stuff, and there's a concern brought by customer, and even an individual. If they cannot answer us, then we stop the operation.
Okay.
But if they do give us a response and try to mitigate that issue, then, but it's the person in charge.
So it's just one
basically.
overall person who oversees
Yeah.
the handling of the food, and so that one individual who is the manager, and if they're only one, if they're the sole employee, they're also the
Yeah.
handler,
The-
the
yeah.
manager and the handler. Okay, thank you, Senator Castro. Anything else? All right. If there's nothing else from the members, can I get a motion for the adoption or the filing or recognize Senator Babauta?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to adopt the amendments that we have discussed in great detail here today in collaboration with the comments from the environmental health personnel that are here. So moved.
Thank you. So just to clarify, the motion is to adopt the draft, which includes the amendment. So that is Senate Bill 2431 SD1, and it was seconded. Any further discussions? At this time, I recognize the LA to take roll.
Senator Selena R. Babauta,
Hundan.
Senator Manny Gregory T. Castro,
Good.
Senator Carl R. King Neighbors,
Yes.
Senator Donald M. Manglonia.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 4 members voted yes and 1 member is absent.
Thank you, Devin. With 4 members voting yes, SB 2431 SD1 is hereby adopted. And may I ask that the LA prepare the committee report for the members so that we can address this in the full Senate body. And that takes care of all the items on the agenda. At this time, I want to thank you, Ms. Pangilinan and Mr. Tagobo, for your time here today and providing your assistance to the committee. And if there's anything else that we can, once the committee report is ready, we'll share that with your division. And that if there are any additional changes you would like to propose prior to the Senate body acting on this legislation, please feel free to reach out.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, since we're here, page 3, line 22 was addressed in our letter. However, line 23 was not. I think this is a typo, 30 meals and 60 meals a week. We're flexible in that. However, we just need to assess how big is or what's the capacity of the kitchen or whatever. But the 30 meals per day and the 60 meals per week production is not consistent. Line 23 and page 3, section 103.
Okay. I think the intention was whether it be a 2-day event at 30 meals a day, which would constitute the 60 a week, or if they sell in smaller amounts per day within a week, no more than 60. But there is that flexibility for EDHDP to make that adjustment in the regulations, however you see fit after you've done the inspection.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tagobo and Ms. Banglina. Again, at this time, we move down to miscellaneous. Anything from the members? If there's none, can I get a motion for the adoption? All right. Thank you. There was a motion made and was seconded. Any objections? There being none, this hearing is hereby adjourned at 11:53 a.m. Thank you, Senator Carl. We'll see you tomorrow.